The wind howled like a hungry wolf, tearing through the quiet suburban streets of Willow Creek, United States. It was the kind of storm that made you want to pull your curtains tight, light a fire, and forget the outside world existed. Rain lashed down in sheets, blurring the streetlights into hazy halos, and thunder rumbled, shaking the very foundations of the neat, respectable houses. Fallen leaves, already slick with water, danced wildly in the swirling gusts. It was a miserable night, even for October. Inside one of those houses, Maria, a woman whose hands knew the intimate feel of every kind of cleaning product, was just finishing up. Her back ached, a familiar companion after a long day spent scrubbing, dusting, and polishing other people's lives. She wiped down the last kitchen counter, her movements precise and efficient, honed by years of practice. Maria worked hard, harder than most people ever realized. Every dollar she earned was carefully stretched, a constant juggling act to keep a roof over their heads and food on the table for her and her daughter. Her dedication wasn't just about survival. It was about providing a better life for Lily, a life with more choices than Maria herself had ever had. Beside her, a small figure bundled in a too-big raincoat, was Lily. She was about 10 years old, maybe 11, a wisp of a girl with eyes that seemed to take in everything. Lily often came with her mother. It wasn't ideal, missing out on playtime or quiet evenings at home, but Maria's hours were long, and childcare was expensive. So, Lily learned to be quiet, to observe, and sometimes to help with the lighter tasks. She never complained. She just watched, her gaze often finding the small, overlooked details that others missed. They finally stepped out into the deluge, pulling their jackets tighter against the sudden chill. The air was thick with the smell of wet earth and rain. Maria fumbled for her car keys, her shoulders hunched against the elements. Lily, however, paused, her head tilted slightly, her eyes, sharp even in the dim light, scanning the street. "Mom," she said, her voice barely audible over the wind. "Look." Maria followed her gaze. Near the bus stop, a figure was hunched over, barely visible through the curtain of rain. It was an old man. He wore a thin, threadbare coat that offered little protection, and his white hair was plastered to his head, dripping water onto his already soaked face. He looked disoriented, leaning heavily on a shaky cane, his movements slow and uncertain. He seemed utterly lost, a fragile boat adrift in a raging sea. He was ill-equipped for such a storm, and a wave of concern washed over Maria. "Oh no," Maria murmured, a sigh escaping her lips. Her first thought was of getting home, of the warm bath she desperately needed, of the dinner she still had to cook. But then she saw Lily's face. Her daughter's brow was furrowed with worry, her lips pressed into a thin line. Lily often felt things deeply, a trait Maria admired, but also sometimes worried about in a world that wasn't always kind. "He looks cold, Mom," Lily said, her voice soft but insistent. "He looks like he needs help." Maria hesitated. "It's late, honey. And this storm—" "But he's all alone," Lily countered, her gaze still fixed on the old man. "What if he falls? What if he gets really sick?" Lily's empathy was a powerful force. Maria knew she couldn't ignore it, couldn't ignore the plea in her daughter's eyes. Besides, Lily was right. No one should be out in weather like this, especially not someone so old and frail. Maria took a deep breath, pushing aside her own exhaustion. "All right, Lilybug," she said, trying to sound more cheerful than she felt. "Let's go see if he's okay." They walked towards the bus stop, the wind pushing against them. As they got closer, the old man looked up. his eyes cloudy and unfocused. He mumbled something unintelligible, shivering violently. He smelled faintly of damp wool and something else, something vaguely medicinal. "Sir, are you all right?" Maria asked, her voice gentle despite the roaring wind. He just blinked, his gaze distant, lost. "I think." "Where do you live?" Lily asked, her small voice cutting through the noise. She opened her backpack, pulling out a small, brightly colored umbrella, one she usually saved for sunny days. It was just a child's umbrella, but she carefully opened it and held it over the old man's head, tilting it so it offered at least some shelter from the relentless downpour. He looked at the umbrella, then at Lily, a flicker of something almost like surprise crossing his face. He tried to speak again, but the words were slurred, a jumble of sounds that didn't form a clear address. He gestured vaguely down the street. Oak Street. Maria exchanged a look with Lily. Oak Street was a few blocks away, not an impossible distance, but a challenging one in this storm, especially with an old man who could barely stand. Still, there was no way they could leave him. "Okay, sir," Maria said, taking his arm gently. His skin felt cold and papery. "We'll help you get home. Do you know your house number?" He shook his head slowly. "Just Oak Street." So they began their slow, arduous journey. Maria supported one side of the old man, her arm wrapped around his frail back. Lily, still holding her small umbrella, walked on his other side, her small hand occasionally patting his arm in a comforting gesture. The rain continued to pour, soaking them to the bone. Every gust of wind threatened to push them over. Maria squinted through the rain, trying to make out house numbers, but it was nearly impossible in the darkness and the downpour. The old man shuffled along, his feet dragging, mumbling occasionally, but never offering any more useful information. It felt like an eternity, but eventually they turned onto Oak Street. It was a street of older houses, some well kept, others showing their age. They walked past several, Maria trying to guess which one might belong to him based on his appearance. But nothing seemed to fit. Finally, about halfway down the block, the old man pointed a trembling finger. "That one," he whispered, his voice thin. It was a modest house, a little rough around the edges, with a porch light that flickered weakly. The garden was overgrown, and a few broken pots lay scattered near the steps. It definitely looked like someone lived alone there. Maria carefully guided him up the few steps, fumbling for a key. To her surprise, the door was unlocked. Inside, the air was cool and a little musty. The living room was small, filled with old, worn furniture. Bookshelves overflowed with books, and stacks of newspapers were piled in corners. It was humble, but clearly lived in. Maria helped the old man to a worn armchair, carefully removing his soaked coat. He slumped into the cushions, looking utterly exhausted, but a little more settled. "Are you warm enough now?" Maria asked, her voice soft. She glanced around, seeing no signs of a caretaker or anyone else. Lily stood quietly by the door, her eyes taking in the clutter, the quiet loneliness of the place. He nodded slowly, his eyes closing. "Thank you," he mumbled, a genuine note of gratitude in his voice this time. Maria knew they couldn't stay. They were soaked, shivering, and Lily needed to be home. But she felt a quiet satisfaction, a warmth that spread through her despite the cold. They had done what they could. "Come on, honey," Maria whispered to Lily, pulling her own sodden jacket back on. "Let's get home." As they stepped back out into the still raging storm, the cold hit them anew. But as they walked, the rain feeling a little less harsh now, Maria looked down at Lily. Her daughter's face was pale from the cold, but there was a quiet glow about her, a sense of rightness. Maria smiled faintly. Lily had a good heart, a pure heart. And sometimes that was all the warmth you needed on a cold, stormy night. The detour had been unexpected, an added burden to an already long day. But Maria knew they had done the right thing. The image of the old man, safe in his armchair, stayed with her, a small comfort against the lingering chill. The next morning, the world felt scrubbed clean. The storm had finally passed, leaving behind a crisp, cool air and a sky that was a startling shade of blue. Maria and Lily were up early, a little more tired than usual from the previous night's adventure, but the routine was a comforting anchor. Maria made a quick breakfast of toast and coffee, while Lily quietly got ready for school. The memory of the old man and their stormy walk home felt almost dreamlike, a distant echo against the bright morning light. Maria tried to push it aside, focusing instead on the day ahead, on the endless list of tasks that awaited her. After dropping Lily off, Maria headed straight to her first job of the day, the towering glass and steel corporate building downtown. It was one of her most demanding accounts, a place where everything had to be spotless, gleaming. She moved through the empty offices, the hum of the air conditioning her only companion, methodically cleaning desks, emptying bins and polishing surfaces. Her mind was a whirlwind of schedules, bills, and the constant worry of making ends meet. The old man from last night was a fleeting thought, a small asterisk in the larger, more pressing narrative of her life. She hoped he was all right, warm and dry, but she had to focus on the present, on the work that paid the rent. Around mid-morning, as Maria was deep in thought, scrubbing a particularly stubborn stain off a conference room table, her phone buzzed. It was a call from the building's reception. Maria rarely got calls on her work phone, and a small knot of apprehension formed in her stomach. "Maria, can you come down to reception, please?" The receptionist, a young woman named Sarah, asked, her voice sounding a little flustered. "There are some gentlemen here who want to speak with you." Maria frowned, her brow furrowing in confusion. "Gentlemen? Why would anyone important want to speak to her?" She was just the cleaning lady. She quickly finished what she was doing, grabbed her cart, and headed towards the elevators. As the doors opened to the ground floor, she saw them. 3 men, impeccably dressed in dark suits, stood near Sarah's desk. They looked serious, their faces holding an air of quiet authority. They weren't smiling. Sarah spotted Maria and gestured towards her. "These are the gentlemen, Maria." Maria approached cautiously, her heart doing a little flutter against her ribs. "Good morning," she said, her voice a little softer than she intended. "How can I help you?" The tallest of the men stepped forward. He had sharp, intelligent eyes that seemed to take in everything at once. "Good morning, ma'am," he said, his voice smooth and formal. "My name is Mr. Davies. We're looking for an elderly gentleman. We understand you might have seen him last night." Maria's mind immediately went to the old man. Her apprehension twisted into a strange mix of surprise and a growing sense of unease. "An elderly gentleman?" she repeated, trying to sound calm. "Yes," Mr. Davies continued, his gaze unwavering. "He's about 70, maybe 75. Thin, with white hair, a little disoriented sometimes. He was wearing a dark, somewhat worn coat yesterday. Do you recall seeing anyone fitting that description?" Maria felt a jolt. It was him. Every detail matched perfectly. "Yes," she said, the word coming out a little breathy. I did see him. Last night, during the storm." The men exchanged a quick glance, a flicker of something unreadable passing between them. Their posture seemed to relax just a fraction, but the urgency in their eyes remained. "Where did you see him, ma'am? And where is he now?" Mr. Davies pressed, his voice still calm, but with an underlying current of impatience. Maria took a breath, gathering her thoughts. "My daughter and I found him near the bus stop, just as the storm was getting really bad. He seemed lost. He couldn't really tell us where he lived." The second man, who had been silent until now, spoke up. "And what did you do then, ma'am?" His tone was a little sharper, more direct. "We walked him home," Maria said simply, as if it were the most natural thing in the world. "He finally mumbled a street name, Oak Street. It took us a while, but we found his house. We made sure he got inside, that he was warm and safe." She remembered the humble house, the cluttered living room, the old man slumping into the armchair. "It's a small house, a little further down Oak Street, past the big oak tree." The men's faces shifted. The anxiety that had been etched there seemed to ease, replaced by a profound relief. But there was also a hint of surprise, a slight widening of their eyes as they processed her story. They probably expected her to have called the police or left him. "You walked him home?" Mr. Davies asked, a hint of disbelief in his voice. "In that storm? You and your daughter?" Maria nodded. "Yes, he needed help." She didn't elaborate, didn't mention her exhaustion or Lily's small umbrella or the cold. It just felt like the right thing to do. The men exchanged another look, this one more understanding, almost appreciative. "Ma'am, this is extraordinary," Mr. Davies said, a new respect in his tone. "He was reported missing last night. We've been searching for him since." He pulled out a small notepad. "Could you give us more precise directions to his house on Oak Street, please? It's vital that we find him immediately." Maria described the house as best she could, pointing out landmarks she remembered from their slow walk. The big oak tree, the flickering porch light, the slightly overgrown garden. The men listened intently, jotting down notes. As she finished, Mr. Davies extended a hand. "Thank you, Maria. You have no idea how important this information is. You and your daughter have done a great service." Maria shook his hand, still feeling a little dazed. "I just hope he's okay." "He will be now, thanks to you," Mr. Davies assured her. With a final nod, the three men turned and headed quickly out of the building. Maria watched them go, a strange mix of curiosity and unease swirling inside her. She returned to her cleaning cart, the conference room table now seeming less important. The old man, the storm, and now these serious men in suits. Her quiet life had just taken an unexpected turn. The men in suits moved with purpose, leaving the gleaming corporate lobby behind. Maria watched them disappear, a knot of questions tightening in her stomach. Who was this old man? And why were these serious people looking for him? She tried to shake off the feeling, to focus on her work, but her mind kept replaying the events of last night and the urgent faces of the men. Meanwhile, the black sedan with tinted windows sped through the city streets, navigating the morning traffic with practiced ease. Mr. Davies, in the passenger seat, reviewed Maria's directions on his notepad. Oak Street, past the big oak tree, slightly overgrown garden. "Sounds right," he murmured, confirming with his silent colleague in the back. The third man, the driver, focused on the road, his jaw tight. They had been searching all night, contacting every hospital, every shelter, every contact they had. The old man's disappearance was not just a personal concern, it had far-reaching implications. Within 20 minutes, they pulled onto Oak Street. It was a quieter, older part of town, lined with mature trees whose branches formed a leafy canopy overhead. They spotted the distinctive oak tree Maria had described, a giant of a tree, its roots cracking the sidewalk. Just a few houses down, a modest home with a slightly neglected garden came into view. It matched Maria's description perfectly. Relief washed over them, but it was quickly replaced by a renewed sense of urgency. They approached the front door, Mr. Davies knocking firmly. There was no immediate answer. He tried again, louder this time. After a short pause, a faint shuffling sound came from inside. The door creaked open slightly, revealing the old man, still in the same clothes he had worn the night before, looking disheveled but otherwise unharmed. He blinked at them, a flicker of recognition in his eyes, then a familiar confusion. "Mr. Peterson," Mr. Davies said, his voice dropping to a tone of profound relief. "Thank goodness. We've been looking for you." The old man, now identified as Mr. Peterson, simply nodded slowly, his gaze drifting past them as if trying to recall something. The other two men quickly entered, assessing his condition, their eyes scanning the small living room. It was exactly as Maria had described, tidy but lived in, filled with books and old photographs, a faint smell of aged paper and dust. One of the men, who introduced himself as Mr. Harrison, Mr. Peterson's legal counsel, gently guided him to a chair. "How are you feeling, sir? Do you remember what happened last night?" Mr. Peterson rubbed his temples. "The storm. It was quite a storm. I was trying to remember something, and then a kind young girl. She had a small umbrella, and her mother." He looked up, a faint smile touching his lips. "They walked me home. Very kind." Mr. Harrison and Mr. Davies exchanged a knowing look. This was typical. Mr. Peterson, despite his immense intellect and sharp mind, suffered from a specific, temporary memory loss condition. It wasn't Alzheimer's, but a unique neurological quirk that, under extreme stress or exhaustion, could cause him to become profoundly disoriented and confused for a period. He would often wander, seeking something he couldn't quite name, and then slowly regain his faculties. His family and close associates had learned to manage it, but the severity of last night's storm had made this episode particularly alarming. "Yes, sir," Mr. Harrison confirmed gently. "Maria and her daughter Lily. They're the ones who helped you. They told us where you were." The men explained to Mr. Peterson that a massive search effort had been underway since the previous evening. His disappearance was not just a personal matter. It was a crisis. Mr. Peterson was not just any elderly man. He was Dr. Arthur Peterson, a Nobel laureate in economics, a renowned philanthropist, and the founder of several global initiatives aimed at poverty eradication and sustainable development. He was a man whose daily decisions impacted millions, and whose absence from his scheduled engagements had caused considerable alarm at the highest levels. "Your foundation, sir, has been in a frenzy," Mr. Davies explained. "Your board meeting was postponed, and your keynote address for the Global Summit was almost canceled. We had private investigators, even government agencies, quietly involved." Dr. Peterson listened, his expression slowly clearing as the fog of confusion lifted. He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them, his gaze now sharp and clear. "So, a maid and her daughter saved me from causing an international incident," he said, a touch of wry humor in his voice. "And they walked me home in that downpour. Unbelievable." Mr. Harrison nodded. "Indeed, sir. Their simple act of kindness prevented what could have been a much more serious situation. They were truly selfless. He paused, looking at Dr. Peterson. We are immensely grateful to them, and we believe it's imperative that we properly thank them for their intervention. They demonstrated a compassion that seems rare these days. Dr. Peterson thought for a moment, a thoughtful expression on his face. Yes, he said, his voice firm. We must. Not just a thank you, but something that truly reflects the magnitude of their compassion. Find out where they live, Mr. Harrison. I want to meet them again, properly, especially the young girl. Lily, wasn't it? She had the kindest eyes. Mr. Harrison pulled out his phone. I already have Maria's number from the corporate office, sir. I'll arrange a meeting. We'll make sure they are adequately compensated for their time and their incredible act of humanity. Compensation is one thing, Dr. Peterson said, looking out the window towards the slightly overgrown garden. But true gratitude is another. I want to do something meaningful, something that changes their lives as they have, in a very real way, preserved mine. The men understood. Dr. Peterson was known for his calculated generosity, his belief in empowering those who showed true character. This was not just about money. It was about recognizing and fostering the rare spirit of kindness he had encountered in a storm. They knew this was just the beginning of a life-changing encounter for Maria and Lily. The men contacted Maria again, not long after that morning. The call came from Mr. Harrison, his voice polite but firm, requesting a formal meeting. He said it wasn't just to express thanks, but to discuss something significant. Maria felt a swirl of apprehension in her stomach. She was a simple maid, used to cleaning up after people, not sitting across from powerful men in suits. What could they possibly want to discuss that was so important? Her mind raced, trying to find a reason, but nothing made sense. She hesitated for a moment, the idea of facing them alone feeling daunting. Then she thought of Lily, and how brave her daughter had been that night. Lily was the reason they were even in this situation. So, Maria agreed, but made sure to state that Lily would be coming with her. It felt right that Lily should be there. The meeting wasn't held in some cold, imposing corporate office like Maria had imagined. Instead, they met in a quiet, upscale cafe, one that Maria would never have dared to enter on her own. The atmosphere was surprisingly calm, almost cozy. Mr. Harrison and Mr. Davies were there, and to Maria's surprise and a little bit of fear, Dr. Arthur Peterson was also present. He looked completely different from the disoriented, rain-soaked man they had found. He was impeccably dressed, his white hair neatly combed, and his eyes, though still carrying the wisdom of age, were now sharp and entirely lucid. As they sat down, Dr. Peterson looked directly at Lily, a soft smile on his face. "Lily," he said, his voice surprisingly gentle for such an influential man. "Thank you. Thank you for your kindness, your courage. You saved me." He paused, then added, "I remember your small umbrella. It didn't do much against the storm, but it meant everything to me." Lily, usually quite outspoken, was a little shy, her hand finding Maria's under the table. She just offered a small, polite nod, her eyes wide. Dr. Peterson then turned to Maria. "And you, Maria, for trusting your daughter's instincts, for enduring that storm to ensure a stranger's safety. It was a selfless act, one that I will never forget." He explained that his memory had returned fully, and he now understood the full extent of the chaos his disappearance had caused. He specifically praised Lily's empathy and courage, noting how her actions directly led to his safety. He highlighted that most people would have just walked past him, especially given the terrible weather. Lily's pure heart, he said, was a rare and precious thing. He then shared a few snippets of his own life story, speaking about his humble beginnings, how he had started with nothing, and the values his own mother had instilled in him. He spoke about why he chose to live modestly, despite his wealth and influence, explaining that true value wasn't in grand displays but in honest work and human connection. Maria found herself nodding along, recognizing some of her own struggles and beliefs in his words. His story resonated with her, making him seem less like a distant, powerful figure, and more like a person who understood hardship. After a moment of sharing, Dr. Peterson leaned forward, his expression becoming more serious. "Maria, Lily," he began, "your actions that night, they reminded me of something very important. They reminded me of the good that still exists in the world, often in the most unexpected places. I owe you both a great debt." He looked from Maria to Lily, his gaze warm and sincere. "I want to do more than just thank you. I want to ensure that Lily's future is as bright as her heart." Maria's breath hitched. She had no idea what was coming, but the weight of his words felt immense. "Lily," Dr. Peterson continued, "I want to offer you a full scholarship. Any university, anywhere in the world, that you wish to attend. All expenses covered, from tuition to living costs, for as long as you need to complete your education." Maria felt a wave of disbelief wash over her. A full scholarship? For Lily, it was beyond anything she could have ever dreamed for her daughter. Her eyes welled up, tears blurring her vision. Lily, meanwhile, looked at Dr. Peterson, then at her mother, a simple, happy smile spreading across her face. She might not have fully grasped the financial magnitude, but she understood that the kind old man was safe and that her act of kindness had made a huge difference, not just for him, but now for her too. Dr. Peterson wasn't finished. He turned back to Maria. "And for you, Maria, I want to help you pursue your own dreams. I understand you've always worked incredibly hard, often putting your own aspirations aside for your family. I want to provide you with the financial support to start your own business or to pursue any long-held dream you might have. Consider it a fund, managed by my associates, to ensure you have the resources to build the life you truly deserve. And, if you prefer, a fully paid-for home, free and clear, to alleviate any housing struggles you might have, or a significant sum to secure your financial future. Whatever you deem best for you and Lily." Maria was completely overwhelmed. Her mind struggled to process the generosity, the sheer scale of the offer. A scholarship for Lily, a business for herself, a house. It was too much to take in all at once. Tears streamed down her face, silent and hot, as she considered the implications for her and Lily's future. All those years of struggle, of worrying about rent, about food, about Lily's schooling, suddenly seemed to dissolve. Lily, sensing her mother's emotion, gently squeezed her hand. After a moment of profound emotion, Maria managed to compose herself. She looked at Dr. Peterson, her voice thick with gratitude. "Dr. Peterson," she whispered, I don't know what to say. This is more than we could ever have imagined. We accept, with all our hearts. Thank you. Thank you for everything." She bowed her head slightly, a gesture of deep respect and humility. She knew this was a turning point, a moment that would forever change the trajectory of their lives. It was an acceptance born not of greed, but of a deep desire for a better, more secure future for her daughter, a future that Lily so deserved. The world around Maria and Lily shifted almost immediately. The first tangible change was moving out of their small, cramped apartment. Within weeks, Dr. Peterson's associates, efficient and discreet, had arranged for them to move into a modest but comfortable three-bedroom house in a quiet, tree-lined neighborhood. It wasn't a mansion, but it felt like one to Maria. It had a small garden, a big kitchen, and best of all, a room for Lily that was all her own, with a desk by the window. Lily spent hours there, drawing and reading, her face often lit up with a quiet joy Maria hadn't seen before. The weight of constant worry about rent checks and eviction notices lifted from Maria's shoulders like a heavy cloak. She could breathe again. Lily's education was the next big step. With the scholarship fully in place, she didn't just attend a better school, she blossomed. The associates found a private school known for its strong academic program and supportive environment. Lily, always a bright child, thrived with the smaller class sizes and dedicated teachers. She excelled in all her subjects, especially art and science. Her natural curiosity, once limited by resources, now had endless avenues to explore. Maria received glowing reports from her teachers, praising not just her grades, but her compassionate nature and her willingness to help other students. Lily often came home buzzing with new facts or creative ideas, eager to share them with her mother. Maria watched her daughter, seeing the future unfold, a future where Lily could truly reach her full potential, without the constant struggle for basic necessities. For Maria, the change was equally profound. The daily grind of cleaning jobs, the aching back and tired feet, became a thing of the past. She had the freedom to choose. Dr. Peterson's offer of financial support for a business was a dream she hadn't dared to voice in years. She had always loved to cook, a talent she'd inherited from her grandmother. With the help of the associates, who provided guidance on business plans and market research, Maria began to lay the groundwork for a small catering company. She started by making meals for friends and neighbors, slowly building a reputation for delicious home-cooked food. The initial steps were daunting, filled with paperwork and learning new skills. But Maria approached it with the same determination she had applied to her cleaning work. Only now, the effort was for her own dream, her own future, and it filled her with a sense of purpose she hadn't felt in years. Dr. Peterson, true to his gentle nature, maintained a benevolent, though distant, connection. Occasionally, a beautifully written letter would arrive, usually with a small, thoughtful gift for Lily, a new art set, a rare book, once even a telescope. His associates would check in periodically, ensuring Maria had everything she needed for the house and the budding business, and that Lily's educational path was smooth. They were never intrusive, always respectful, simply ensuring that the promises made were being kept. It was a kind of watchful guardianship, a quiet assurance that they were not alone. News of their sudden, unexpected fortune spread quickly through their old community. There was a mix of reactions, as expected. Some former neighbors, struggling themselves, felt a pang of envy, wondering why such luck hadn't fallen on them. Others, however, expressed genuine admiration and happiness. They remembered Maria's tireless work ethic and Lily's sweet nature, seeing the good fortune as a reward for their inherent kindness. Maria found herself having to gently deflect questions and curious glances, choosing to focus on her new life and the opportunities it presented. Navigating their new circumstances wasn't without its challenges. Maria, while grateful, sometimes felt overwhelmed by the suddenness of it all. Managing finances, making decisions about the house, and learning the ropes of starting a business were all new to her. There were moments of self-doubt where she wondered if she was truly capable. Lily, too, had to adjust to a new school environment, making new friends and adapting to a different social dynamic. But they faced these adjustments together, leaning on each other for support. Maria would often remind herself of the cold, stormy night and how far they had come. Maria frequently reflected on that pivotal night, on the bravery of her young daughter, and the simple act of kindness that had changed everything. She made it a point to instill in Lily the importance of paying it forward. "We were given a great gift, Mija," she would say, "and with it comes the responsibility to help others when we can. Never forget what it felt like to struggle, and never forget the kindness that lifted us up." Lily, with her growing understanding, absorbed these lessons deeply. She saw firsthand the profound impact of her simple act, and it solidified her compassionate nature, giving her a deeper sense of purpose. Together, they started actively planning for their future. Maria envisioned her catering business growing, perhaps even opening a small cafe someday. Lily, inspired by her new studies, dreamed of becoming a scientist or an artist or maybe even a teacher. They would sit together in their new living room, sketching out ideas, making lists, and talking for hours. Their dreams, once small and constrained by circumstances, now stretched as far as their imaginations could reach. The future, once a source of anxiety, was now a canvas of endless possibilities. Years passed, each one bringing new experiences and further solidifying the foundations of the new life Maria and Lily had built. The small apartment was a distant memory, replaced by a comfortable house with a small garden where Lily loved to plant flowers. The constant worry about bills and rent had faded, replaced by a sense of security that Maria had only ever dreamed of. Lily, now a bright and confident young woman, was thriving. She was no longer the small girl with the umbrella, but a high school student with a sharp mind and an even sharper wit. Her grades were consistently excellent, a testament to her natural intelligence and the opportunities the scholarship had provided. She attended a top-rated public school, where her thoughtful nature and genuine kindness earned her many friends. She was active in debate club, a volunteer at the local animal shelter, and still dedicated time to her art. Her sketches filling notebooks with intricate designs and vibrant colors. Her empathy, which had shone so brightly that stormy night, had only grown stronger with age, guiding her interactions and shaping her view of the world. She carried herself with a quiet grace, a young woman aware of her blessings and determined to use them wisely. Maria, too, had blossomed. Her catering business, which she had started with such trepidation, was now a resounding success. What began as a few small orders for local events had expanded into a well-regarded enterprise, known for its delicious food and Maria's warm, professional service. She had a small team of employees, all of whom she treated with the same respect and care she had always wished for in her own working life. She had meticulously learned every aspect of running a business, from managing finances to marketing, proving herself to be not just a talented cook, but a shrewd businesswoman. The stress lines that had once etched her face had softened, replaced by a look of contentment and quiet pride. She was no longer just a maid. She was an entrepreneur, a respected employer, and a woman who had built something meaningful from the ground up. The old man, Mr. Henderson, had passed away peacefully a few years prior. His passing had been a quiet affair, befitting his humble nature despite his immense wealth. Maria and Lily had attended a small private memorial service, where they learned even more about the incredible impact he had made on the world through his philanthropy. His legacy, however, continued to live on, not just through his foundation, but through the lives he had touched. His associates, particularly the kind lawyer who had first approached Maria, continued to oversee the college fund for Lily, ensuring every academic need was met. They would send an email update every quarter, a quiet reminder of the generosity that had reshaped their lives. Inspired by Mr. Henderson's quiet benevolence and her own transformative experience, Lily began to show a strong interest in giving back to the community. She wasn't just volunteering. She was actively seeking out ways to make a difference. She joined a youth advisory board for a local homeless shelter, helping to organize donation drives and awareness campaigns. She talked about pursuing a degree in social justice, or perhaps even international relations, wanting to understand the systems that created inequality and how to change them. Her compassion was not passive. It was a driving force, pushing her towards a future dedicated to helping others. Maria, now financially secure and deeply fulfilled, continued to impart invaluable life lessons to Lily. Their conversations were rich with wisdom, Maria emphasizing the enduring importance of humility, hard work, and compassion. "Money can give you comfort, Mija," she would often say, "but it doesn't change who you are inside. Always remember where you came from, and always treat everyone with kindness, no matter their station in life." These were not just words. They were principles Maria lived by, and Lily observed her mother's actions, seeing how Maria continued to treat everyone with respect, whether they were a new employee or a wealthy client. Their comfortable home was a quiet sanctuary, a place filled with laughter, good food, and shared dreams. It was a testament to their journey, a physical manifestation of the immense change that had come into their lives. Their lives were stable, happy, and brimming with opportunities that had once seemed utterly unattainable. The future, once a source of deep anxiety, now stretched before them, a wide-open vista of possibilities. The pay-it-forward mentality wasn't just a concept for them. It was a way of life. Maria quietly sponsored a scholarship for a deserving student from her old neighborhood, ensuring another young person had the chance Lily had. Lily, through her volunteer work, organized mentorship programs for younger students struggling in school, offering them the guidance and encouragement she knew was so vital. They actively engaged in acts of kindness, both big and small, remembering the impact of one selfless act on their own lives. They understood that their good fortune came with a responsibility, a duty to extend the same grace they had received to others who needed it. They occasionally revisited the memories of that turbulent, stormy night. It was a story they shared often, not with boastfulness, but with a deep sense of wonder and gratitude. It was their foundational myth, the turning point that had reshaped their destinies. They acknowledged it as a moment of profound grace, a reminder that even in the darkest of storms, a beacon of hope can emerge from the simplest act of human connection. The umbrella, long since replaced, remained a powerful symbol in their hearts. Lily's passion for social justice blossomed into a defined career path. After graduating with honors from a top university, aided by the scholarship from the Henderson Foundation, she pursued a master's degree in public policy, focusing on urban development and community empowerment. She wasn't content with just understanding problems. She wanted to be at the forefront of crafting solutions. Her thesis explored sustainable housing initiatives for low-income families, a topic close to her heart given her own family's past struggles. She eventually joined a prominent nonprofit organization dedicated to affordable housing and community revitalization. Her work involved navigating complex bureaucratic systems, collaborating with local governments, and most importantly, listening to the voices of the people she aimed to serve. She was known for her empathetic approach, her ability to connect with individuals from all walks of life, and her unwavering dedication to equitable solutions. She wasn't driven by fame or fortune, but by a deep-seated belief that everyone deserved a safe and dignified place to call home. Maria, observing Lily's professional journey, felt a profound sense of pride. She, too, had found her calling beyond the cleaning business she had built. After years of successfully managing her own enterprise, she had transitioned into a role as a community advocate. She joined the board of a local women's center, lending her business acumen and life experience to help other women start their own ventures or find stable employment. Maria became a sought-after mentor, particularly for immigrant women striving for independence. She shared her story openly, emphasizing that success was not just about financial gain, but about resilience, integrity, and the power of human connection. Her warm, no-nonsense advice and practical guidance empowered countless individuals to overcome obstacles and pursue their dreams. She often organized workshops on financial literacy and small business management, ensuring that the resources she once lacked were available to others. The Henderson Foundation, now run by Mr. Henderson's former associates and his grandnephew, maintained a quiet but steady connection with Lily. They saw her as a living testament to Mr. Henderson's values and generosity. On occasion, they would invite her to speak at their annual events, where she would share her personal story, illustrating the profound impact of their founder's kindness. Her speeches were never about self-promotion. They were always a humble tribute to the man who had seen potential in a lost child and her weary mother. The ripple effect of that stormy night continued to expand, touching lives far beyond their immediate circle. The foundation, inspired by Lily's work in affordable housing, even launched a new grant program specifically for community-led housing initiatives, with Lily serving as an informal advisor. The narrative of Maria and Lily underscored how a seemingly small act of kindness, offering an umbrella and walking a confused old man home, could set off a chain reaction of monumental and lasting change. It wasn't just about the financial transformation. It was about the transformation of spirit, the blossoming of potential, and the continuous cycle of giving. Their story became a quiet legend in their community, a reminder that empathy was a powerful currency, capable of yielding immeasurable returns. Life, even for those who have found success, always presented challenges. Maria faced health scares, and Lily navigated the complexities of political and social change in her work. But they approached these hurdles with a grounded resilience, drawing strength from their past. They remembered the times they had nothing, the nights Maria worked 2 jobs, the fear of eviction. These memories weren't a source of bitterness, but a wellspring of gratitude and a constant reminder of their inner fortitude. Their bond, strengthened by shared triumphs and tribulations, remained the bedrock of their lives. They were each other's greatest cheerleaders, confidants, and anchors in a sometimes turbulent world. Their contributions to the community did not go unnoticed. Lily received a prestigious award for her innovative work in housing policy, and Maria was honored with a Woman of the Year award by a local civic organization. These accolades were humbling, and they accepted them not as personal triumphs, but as recognition for the collective good that had flowed from one man's unexpected generosity. They continued to live modestly, despite their comfortable circumstances, preserving the humility that had defined their earlier lives. They understood that true worth was not measured by possessions, but by purpose and compassion. They were consciously building a legacy of compassion and service, ensuring that the old man's initial generosity lived on through their actions. They established a small family fund, quietly supporting local initiatives focused on youth mentorship and elderly care. It was their way of honoring Mr. Henderson, not just with words, but with tangible, impactful deeds. They believed that their story had a purpose beyond themselves, a message to share about the transformative power of simple human decency. They often spoke about the umbrella, not as an object, but as a symbol of hope. A small shield against life's storms, provided by an unexpected hand. It was a reminder that even the smallest acts could change everything. The umbrella, that simple, ordinary object, had indeed become their enduring symbol. It represented not just protection from a storm, but the unexpected shelter of kindness, the turning point in their lives. Years after that fateful night, Lily, now a respected leader in urban development, found herself in a situation that echoed her childhood act. She was visiting a bustling city center for a conference, walking back to her hotel after a late session when she saw him, an elderly man, disoriented and muttering to himself, clutching a worn-out bag, trying to navigate the complex intersection of a busy street. It wasn't raining, but the metaphorical storm of confusion and vulnerability was clear on his face. Without a second thought, the years of policy work, philanthropy, and professional accolades faded, replaced by the instinctive compassion of a child. Lily approached him gently, much like she had approached Mr. Henderson all those years ago. She spoke softly, asking if he needed help, if he was lost. His eyes, clouded with age and fear, looked up at her, and in that moment, Lily saw a flicker of Mr. Henderson. She offered her arm, a steady anchor in the chaos of the city, and slowly, patiently, helped him find his way to a nearby helpline center, ensuring he was safe and connected with assistance. It was a small act, unnoticed by the rushing crowd, but for Lily, it was a profound full-circle moment. It wasn't about grand gestures or public recognition. It was about the quiet, personal fulfillment of extending a hand to someone in need, just as one had been extended to her. Lily actively sought out opportunities to mentor young people, particularly those from disadvantaged backgrounds, sharing her story not as a tale of exceptional luck, but as an example of perseverance, the power of empathy, and the ripple effects of a single act of kindness. She spoke at schools, community centers, and even juvenile detention facilities, emphasizing that circumstances did not define potential, and that every individual had the capacity to make a positive impact, no matter how small they perceived their starting point to be. Her narrative resonated deeply, offering a tangible example of how a life could be transformed, not through magic, but through the intertwined forces of compassion, opportunity, and hard work. She often reminded them that success wasn't just about what you achieved for yourself, but about how you used that achievement to lift others. Maria, now in her golden years, watched Lily with immense pride. Her days of relentless cleaning were long behind her, replaced by peaceful mornings, gardening, and the quiet joy of seeing her daughter thrive. She had achieved a profound sense of peace and fulfillment, a contentment that went beyond material comfort. She saw in Lily not just a successful professional, but a woman who embodied the very values they had lived by, the lessons learned from struggle, and the enduring spirit of generosity. Maria knew that her daughter was not merely living a life. She was building a legacy, a testament to the idea that true wealth resided not in possessions, but in the richness of one's character and the depth of one's empathy. Every time Lily spoke, every time she extended her hand to someone, Maria felt a quiet triumph, a validation of all the sacrifices and all the hopes she had nurtured. The lasting message of their journey, for Maria, for Lily, and for all who heard their story, was clear. True wealth lies not just in material possessions, but in kindness, empathy, and the willingness to help others, especially the vulnerable. It was a message simple in its truth, yet profound in its implications. It spoke to the universal human experience, reminding everyone that while money could open doors, it was compassion that opened hearts and built lasting bridges. Driven by this conviction, Lily, through her work and personal initiative, established a small foundation. It wasn't grand or publicly advertised, but quietly impactful. Named the Umbrella Project, it provided micro-grants and mentorship to single mothers striving to improve their children's lives, and offered practical support to elderly individuals experiencing temporary disorientation or isolation. It was her way of honoring Mr. Henderson's memory, not just with words, but with tangible, impactful deeds, directly addressing the very struggles she and her mother had faced, and the vulnerability Mr. Henderson had experienced. The story had indeed come full circle, demonstrating how the initial act of kindness on a stormy night blossomed into a lifetime of positive impact, creating an ever-expanding chain of good deeds. The small, fragile umbrella that Lily had held over Mr. Henderson had become a metaphor for a much larger, more robust shield of compassion, protecting and nurturing countless lives. Maria and Lily's lives were a living testament to the enduring impact of human connection and the unexpected blessings that can arise from selfless acts. It was a story that began with a storm, but ended with an unending sunrise, illuminating the path for others to follow, proving that the maid's daughter, through her simple act, not only saved a life but also transformed her own, and in doing so, inspired countless others to embrace compassion as the truest form of power.